So the obvious first question is why the National Guard, why FEMA, why now, and what will they do that hasn't been done?
Well, I think it's continuing the path to say we want to do more and more to make sure we're taking care of the short-term issues of getting filters and water available to all the citizens of Flint. And so this is just another step in that path. So the role of the National Guard in particular can help make sure we have more resources to help, particularly in those fire stations, for the dissemination of water. That frees up some of those great American Red Cross volunteers to potentially do more house-to-house work, which we started yesterday. So it's a continuation of that path. And with respect to FEMA, we said we were going through the path of building a relationship with FEMA to get them engaged, and this was a great next step. So last night I spoke to the Region 5 administrator, who was extremely helpful, wanting to partner in terms of how do we work together to get more federal resources involved in this situation.
So
how
they've
many personnel
approved your
and-
request? Is that what I'm hearing?
What it is a request for coordination resources. So we're not going through the process yet to say we need specific things out of specific departments, but what they're providing now are people that can help go through the different departments of the federal government to say how they might be able to help this situation.
So
When
how
are you
many
going to
people and how
request
long?
actual dollars for Flint?
That will still take some time. As I explained, there's a process, and we want to do that right in terms of how we put in the request, in terms of gathering background information. But this request to FEMA now will actually help with that process in terms of helping them help us do that coordination and information gathering.
I'm still not clear. How many people and for how many days in Flint with the National Guard, what you control?
Well, with respect to the National Guard, we're starting with the range of about 30 people to begin with. But again, we're assessing that on a regular basis to say, do we need more resources? How long do we need the resources? We're still ramping this up in terms of making sure we keep those fire stations fully stocked. We started door-to-door yesterday. That went well in terms of all reports I got. And again, we want to do more and more. The idea is to cover all the households in Flint in terms of access to water and filters.
I was
Governor-
up there yesterday. You're promising.
Governor, the federal EPA said they sounded the alarm back in April and that the Michigan DEQ did not respond to their warnings. Were you aware that the federal EPA notified the MDEQ about these problems?
Well, again, there's a whole set of issues. I can't speak to the federal government. In terms of the DEQ telling me there was a real issue, that didn't happen until the October timeframe.
So who told you the bad information prior to October? Was that the director of the DEQ?
The DEQ did not give me appropriate information until the October timeframe. In terms of, a lot of it was in the context of how do you interpret a lead and copper rule. So I know there was discussions going on with the EPA, but I was never informed that there was a disagreement or they had a difference in terms of one believing one's right and wrong versus they were talking about it.
Do you believe anyone at the DEQ broke the law, or did they just make mistakes?
Again, there'll be people already investigating that, and I want them to do a thorough investigation.
But you're ready and willing to talk to federal prosecutors if necessary.
Oh, obviously, we already called to say we're ready to cooperate in any way needed. I want investigations to take place on this from the relevant parties that have those responsibilities, because that's how we get to the bottom of what took place and how do we make sure it doesn't happen again.
Day to day, there's a shortage of supplies. I was up there yesterday. Your administration has promised bottled water, test kits, filters, filter cartridges. The test kits to test for lead are non-existent up there. How do you explain that when you're promising Flint, but you're not delivering?
Well, they are existent, but there are occasional shortages, and that's part of the ramp-up phase we're going through. You wish that didn't happen, but as a practical matter, we just started within the last 2 or 3 days of making sure these things are provided. Literally, there are semi-loads of water en route to be put in warehouses to make sure we have that stocked. The same thing with test kits. Again, probably not in the semi-load context, but having lots of test kits available.
What do
So
you
we're
want?
working hard to make sure that when people go, there won't be a shortage, and that was the point of having the National Guard assist in that process.
What do you want to say to the people of Flint? I was up there yesterday. It's heartbreaking. It really is.
Well, what I've already said a number of things, but I also want to reinforce there's a commitment to make sure that we continue adding resources to the point where people have water, whether bottled water or filters, available.
Governor, if this money gets up to the $1 billion range, is that money that's going to come from roads, from fire, police? Where does that money come from?
Again, we shouldn't be speculating on billion-dollar numbers. We're providing resources now, and we're going to continue to provide resources to help with the short term. We're working the longer-term issues in terms of the transition to the Karagandhi water system at some point and doing that in a safe fashion. And we're doing follow-up in terms of making sure anyone identified with higher lead levels has ongoing care that literally will go for a number of years.
But there's not unlimited money. It's coming from somewhere. Is it coming from the surplus? Is it coming from some other?
We
agency?
already did a supplemental appropriation towards the later part of last year. Again, we have been working this for some time. What we're doing are continuing to escalate our efforts to make sure we're getting all the coverage that we want to see happen.
How do
And
you
Governor,
respond to people,
well, I
Governor?
just, wait, DPS,
You
DPS. We had
just haven't got
the
it.
teacher sick outs, Governor.
There hasn't been a repeat question yet.
Governor, will the pipes have to be replaced, and are you willing to look at that as a solution?
Governor, when will you take some extended questions to fully explain this? Your urgency seems to be to avoid questions rather than answer them for accountability.
Just let them know why they ran us.